Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostrowski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
What is going on, everybody? Same show, same time, different night, same network, Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. I am the Big O, Jerry Ostrowski, and the Big O Show will now be on Wednesday nights, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and we have a lot to talk about today. Free agency is upon us. It has started. I believe it's about, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Signings could be official after the quote-unquote tampering period, which I still don't know what the hell that means. I tried to explain it to Joe, and I'm sitting there explaining it to him, and I'm like, I don't think I know what the hell it means. How does Joe know what it means? But anyway, joining me tonight, because we got a lot to talk about, my good friend Joe Miller. We're fresh off of traveling out to Tucson, Arizona, and hanging out with our third member of the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, John Fina, out at Casa Fina. Good time, wasn't it, Joe?
It was a fantastic time. I think my favorite part about the whole entire sequence of events of Arizona and that trip was you and me pre-recording a show last Wednesday to drop on Sunday, knowing that by the weekend that somehow the news was going to trash and destroy everything that we'd pre-recorded. And what was it, 8 o'clock Thursday morning? Like news drops, and it's like, well,
Right.
so much for that. So delete it all.
We're driving in Fina's truck to his house from the airport. And Josie's looking at Twitter, going, "Well, nope." I'm like, just pull that show down, man. We're not going to do that. But anyway, we're going to talk a little bit tonight about the Buffalo Bills free agency. We're going to talk about some things that happened today before we get into each individual player and kind of discuss a little bit about what they bring to the Bills roster, because 2025 has kicked off and the 2025 season is upon us. But today we had a couple of things happen in non-signings before we get into those. First thing being Ed Oliver restructures his contract.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills save $10.6 million. They add 2 voidable years, 2028, 2029. Obviously, a bunch of money that was needed to sign some of these guys. I do like the voidable years, Joe. I do like that.
Yeah, I'm not a big contract guy, but anytime you can negotiate voidable years into a contract, which allows you to get out. It's funny to me. I don't understand why the player would do it, right? Why would the player allow that to? Stephon Diggs did the same thing with that trade, right? So when Stephon Diggs went to Buffalo, the last couple of years on his contract ended up being voidable, and sure enough, void. They like, you're out of here, fella. So I like it. I don't understand why the player would do it necessarily. But
well, I think the big deal is, and we talked about it, I know John and I have talked about it a couple times here on the show. It's one of those things where you bust your rear end to get that deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once you earn that contract and you go into the office and they've got the ceremonial contract and pen that you sign, the minute you put pen to paper, the administration in the office is trying to find a way to get it back. Okay? They're trying to find a way to take it back from you. And I think guys that are moving on in their career after that first big deal, and we know Ed got that first big contract last year, they try to do things to be proactive and, stay in the good graces of the front office, so to speak, so that when those situations that you unfortunately have to talk about later in your career come up, you can say, hey, remember that time that I added some years and all that stuff? Because I'm like you. I'm not a huge contract guy. I don't enjoy digging in the numbers as far as contracts like some people do. But I know them a little bit, and I do know that concept. Once they pay you, they're trying to get it back. Other news today, Kaiir Elam, the much-maligned Kaiir Elam, has been traded to the Dallas Cowboys. The Buffalo Bills get a 2025 fifth-round pick. They also get a 2026 seventh-round pick. Dallas gets Elam, and then also one of the Bills' 2025 sixth-round picks. The Bills will save $2.5 million of cap space with that trade. They will eat $1.8 million of dead money. Your thoughts on this? I mean, I think this is kind of something that was expected.
I don't know how he stayed on the roster this long, whether it was via trade, via cut, via whatever. And I know there's an aspect of first round draft pick, but it's surprising to me they didn't cut their losses far sooner than this. So it was, and then on top of that, the second surprise is the fact that they got something for him, right? So 2 picks. Obviously, we gave up him and a pick to get 2 picks back, but and they're picks for next year, if I'm not mistaken, for 2026. So for all intents and purposes, we had the capital to move him. We had the capital to push those picks into next year. And Beane did just that. So I like the kid. You wish the best for him. He just, whether it was scheme and fit and what the Bills were asking of him, he couldn't translate or transition into. But he was a square peg in a round hole from day one. I remember that draft season and doing all of our pre-draft shows. And Kaiir Elam was the guy that was like, he's not really a fit for this defense. Like, there's all these other guys. All the other guys went before Kaiir Elam, and then the Bills took him. And you're like, well, here we go. And the flight, right, where he get me the playbook. I'm going to get in the book. I'm going to learn everything. And so there's hope. This kid's eager. He's got some urgency to him. It was just never a fit. So hopefully he goes right and to Dallas and becomes the player that he knows he can be.
Right, and I think history shows the pick compensation that the Bills got is kind of right in line for that kind of first-round guy that struggles after 4 years. It's kind of in line with some other guys that have been traded before the fifth-year option was picked up. So nothing but the best of luck to Kaiir Elam. Like you said, a situation where the Bills drafted for need other than from their board, and it bit them. And it's a phenomenon in the NFL. I mean, these guys get to the league, these coaches, and, hey, I can coach anybody to become a great player. And sometimes it's a little bit harder than people think. Other thing that happened today, kind of I don't know if it's a surprise. I think it's probably really a bargain signing for a guy that probably will again be looked at as a backup piece to this Bills defense. Damar Hamlin continues his ride with the Bills. He agreed to a 1-year contract extension. Your thoughts on on Damar being re-signed?
So for me, your starters for 2025 are Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop. I would expect the Bills to draft Taylor Rapp's replacement in this draft. And then 2026, effectively, right, you would see Cole Bishop and player X as far as that goes. I was surprised that Damar Hamlin didn't go to Pittsburgh. He's got a long personal history with that team, with Mike Tomlin. There was a lot of rumors that he was going to go there. Obviously, there's some personal ties to Buffalo and to this franchise, having, the medical staff saved his life here in Buffalo. And you can't discount and undervalue maybe his emotional and spiritual connection to being here. Just from everything that he went through, how the city kind of embraced him. I know there's always going to be a lot of Damar Hamlin fans out there and people that root for him. And I'm a guy that roots for Damar Hamlin too, as it pertains to fit, best players on the field. He's not going to probably be that guy this year. So as a backup, in a backup role, great. But had he gone to Pittsburgh, I don't know that we would be upset. Right.
And I also think sometimes people think it's a no-brainer that you go back to where you were born and raised, but it's hard to go back home as far as being a professional athlete, being an NFL player, going back home, a lot of expectations, a lot of people in your ear. And obviously, Pittsburgh is where he was born and raised, but I'm not sure that with the events that have happened to Damar in his career and the love and respect shown to him by not only the organization, but the fan base, you could very easily say that Buffalo is now home to Damar. So anyway, that was those were the signings or some of the things that happened today. So let's get into our main guys, the guys that we have signed, kind of the key piece dudes that the Bills have, I don't want to say gambled on, but definitely maybe, in the situation, this is the way I look at this, Joe. In the situation the Bills are in cap-wise, and even though they got some money to spend, it's not like they got just crazy amounts of money to spend.
Right.
They did go out and get some guys that have been great players in this league, guys that maybe have been undervalued in this league, guys that have maybe been buried under depth chart in this league, guys that have been in the wrong scheme in this league, and players that I think could make a huge impact for this team if everything goes right. This could be one hell of a free agent signing group at the end of the season next year, when this whole season is over with. I mean, you got a lot of potential with this group. And we'll start with the number one guy, probably the most talked about signing of this group, the guy that has a lot of question marks coming in, and that would be Joey Bosa, the defensive end from the Chargers. And what's funny is that Bosa was – the 49ers released Leonard Floyd because they thought they had a deal with Joey Bosa, that he was going to come over there and be bookends with his brother and all that. Next thing you know, Bosa ends up in Buffalo, a one-year contract, $2.6 million. $12.6 million. That could go up to $15.6 million if he hits his incentives.
Please hit your incentives.
And here's the thing, okay? This is what everybody this is a guy, all right, and he's averaged 11.4 sacks per 17 games in his career. He's been to 5 Pro Bowls. He was the defensive rookie of the year in 2016. But over the last 2 years, he's been available for 28 out of 51 games. So there's your caveat. There's your talking point. Can Joey Bosa stay healthy in Buffalo to be that player that the Bills need at the defensive end position? Because when you look at everything on paper, I mean, he's a cat. He's that guy, and he's got a lot of gas left in the tank. And I know that the injuries happen, but you think about this, if you can keep him healthy over the last 2 years, okay, he's averaged only 14 football games. That's not a ton of football for an NFL guy. So even though he was injured, the overall wear and tear rate has come down for a guy that has been incredibly productive in this league. Your thoughts on this Joey Bosa signing?
So it all comes. Everything you just said are all my thoughts, right? Can he stay healthy? You almost feel like Von Miller is a first ballot, probably Hall of Fame defensive end in the NFL for the NFL when he retires. 2 Super Bowls, storied career, just a menace off the edge. And you got to wonder, had Joey Bosa's career been a little more like Von Miller's as it pertains to health wise and availability wise? Vaughn, I think, had the 2 ACLs for the most part. Those were the only 2 real seasons of time where he missed. Joey, his numbers would be incredible. Like, Joey Bosa is a phenomenal football player. He's everything this defense needs. He's everything Greg Rousseau needs. I would say that his play isn't necessarily predicated, as we have talked on this network, and I know other networks have talked about it. His play isn't overly predicated by having the big fat, one technique in the middle, right, along with the powerful penetrating 3 technique. Like, Joey has moves. Joey has things that he can use. He's got tools in his bag. He can get by tackles and by guards, and he can get off blocks, and he can get to the quarterback. We've seen it before. It wouldn't be the first time that a player changed scenery, and it's not about his previous backyard, but a player's changed scenery and suddenly doesn't have an injury problem. So there's hope there that maybe he comes here, and who knows? We've talked about it at length, ad nauseum, and you guys are mad at me every time we talk about it. Maybe the lower rotational thing helps him. Maybe that's a situation where getting in at 50 to 55% of the snaps puts him where he's not in that position of hurting himself. You just don't know. At the end of the day, I like Joey Bosa. I mean, he's a good football player, and he can make a huge, with Von Miller and the money we paid from day one at his age, it was who gives a crap what he does during the season. If we get to the postseason and he has 5 sacks in the postseason and we win the Super Bowl, he was worth every dime we paid for him. Joey Bosa is a guy that should be there from day one if he can stay healthy, and he should be an immediate impact player. He's played against, obviously, Pat Mahomes quite a bit, so he knows that team and he knows that quarterback pretty well. I like it. So I wish the number was a little smaller, but I get it, going rate, and there was a bidding war. Clearly, we had to steal in San Fran. So I
don't think the number is that big. When you look at,
I know.
At the top 10 guys in the league at that position, and you look at some of the others, I don't think I think $12.6 million for a 1-year investment is a no-brainer when you can bring Joey Bosa in.
Unless he plays 4 games, then you're like, well, crap.
And that's going to be the thing. That's all anybody's going to talk about. And I'm not saying you're doing this. I'm just saying the people that are the naysayers,
right?
That's what they're going to hang their hat on. It's going to constantly be about his health. It was over the last 2 years, and I think this was to me, especially when you got all these high defensive end targets that you're trying to go after that are re-signing with their own teams. You know, and you look at, you got Myles Garrett signing for $40 million. You got Max Crosby signing for what, $39 million, $38 million. I'm not so sure that Hendrickson is the body type necessarily that we want, but he can rush the passer. But the thing about Bosa is he can play the run, he can rush the passer. I think it's no brainer. I like it, and we just cross our fingers and hope that he can stay healthy on a diminished snap count. And I want to stay in that group because the Bills have signed 3 players in the defensive front. Second guy we're going to talk about, and you'll have to help me on the last name. I tried to find a pronunciation deal, and I could not.
Hecht.
Hecht. So you got defensive lineman Michael Hecht from the Rams. We signed him 3 years, $27 million, 6'4", 267. He's got 13.5 sacks over his career. Interesting guy, undrafted free agent out of Brown. He's a Canadian. Matter of fact, him and Josh Palmer grew up very close together. Comes down to America, non-draft free, and makes it. This, to me, is another key piece because he is a motor guy. This is annoying motor guy. Okay, we used to always go into training camp and you say, like, who's an annoying motor guy this year? Well, first of all, it was always
Terrell.
It was always Mark Pike.
Oh
no,
okay.
It was always Mark Pike.
Okay.
You know, God rest his soul.
Right.
I love Mark, but it was always Mark Pike. He was the training camp MVP every year. And then there was always that other guy that was a free agent or somebody who's trying to make it. But I like his skill set. He can play outside. He can play inside. When he came in the league, he was 310 pounds. He's cut down to 267. Tremendously athletic, tremendously confident, brings an edge to him. I think he is a very, very good fit for this Bills front. Your thoughts on Michael Hecht?
Well, the first one is I apparently pronounced it wrong because Zach of all trades gives a super chat and says it's Hoyt. So
thank you.
I saw it on Twitter that it was Hecht, H-E-C, like H-E-C-T, H-E-C-H-T was the way that it was pronounced. So if it's Hoyt,
thank you, Zach of all trades.
Yeah, great. Thanks for
That's where we love our listeners and our followers and our subscribers. And by the way, hit the subscribe and like and rate this show.
Yes,
that's why we love you. So not only did you correct us, you paid us for doing it. So thank you so much. So
Bills beat reporter for WGR 55, Sal Capaccio, had I forget who it was, had a guy on today on the radio on the Extra Point show from 10 to 12 talking about specifically both Josh and then this guy, Michael Hoyt. Or Hecht, however you want to say it. And his point about Michael Hoyt was just that he started, so 3-4 defense, right? So different defense from a scheme standpoint, 3-4 versus 4-3 with the Bills. He came in as a defensive tackle and then showed some acumen to his memory, or his recollection of being able to play inside and outside and play defensive end. And then once that kind of happened, that's when he dropped all the weight. And then I can't remember. Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. There was Raheem Morris came in as the defensive coordinator for the Chargers and moved him outside even farther and started having him covering slot receivers and doing some other kind of weird things. There's obviously the video on Twitter of him covering DK Metcalf and actually tipping the ball away from him. But it exposed him was the words that he used. And he kind of fell out of love with the fan base in that time. And then Raheem Morris moved on. New coaching staff came in and they got him back to doing what he's capable of doing. All that to say this, the expectation is that he's going to be an outside edge rusher in a 4-3 defense, hand on the ground, which you and John talk about that all the time. Greg Rousseau standing up late, getting out of his stance. Whereas, if you've got your hand in the ground, it's a track meet, right? And he's got a good get off as far as that goes. So I would expect him to be in the mix, probably one of the guys that's rotating in and out with Joey Bosa and with obviously Greg Rousseau. So if Joey's at 55%, maybe Michael's at 45% or 40%. So I have high expectations for him. At the end of the day, how high can you go? Because we have seen literally in this free agency period. I don't want to be Debbie Downer or Negative Nancy. Why are they both women's names? I don't want to be whatever, Negative Joe or Negative Nick. As far
Negative
as
Joe works very well.
negative Nick. But Puna Ford comes here on a 1-year deal for a couple $1 million. Kind of I want to be in Buffalo and win. The dude can't even get on the field. And meanwhile, Puna Ford just signed a 3-year, $30 million contract because last year he played lights out. And it's just like, So is it the scheme? Is it
Yes,
the Bills,
it's totally
or is it the player? So
no, it's totally scheme. We're going to talk about that with our next guy as well, and we're going to stay on the defensive line. So you got defensive end Joey Bosa, twitchy guy. You've got defensive lineman Michael Hoyt, twitchy guy. Now you got 30-year-old defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi from the Steelers, twitchy dude. 1 year, another 1-year contract, $8.3 million. $8 million of it is guaranteed. He's 6'3", 305. He is a pure 4-3 guy on the inside. He can play 3 technique, he can play 1 technique. He's a disruptor. He gets upfield. He did not have great stats in Pittsburgh because he's not a 2-gap type of guy. He's not a 2-gapping out defensive lineman. He is a upfield, make plays in the backfield kind of dude. And, you know, his deal could be worth $10 million if he hits his incentives. But when you look at these guys, and I like this pick as well because you watch some film of him, he's able to wreak havoc upfield a lot like Ed Oliver, but a bigger body. But when you look at this front, okay, you got 3 D linemen signed. All of them are twitchy, upfield kind of dudes. And, you know, if you remember correctly, all right, you still got Marcus West as your defensive line coach, but you bring in Jason Rabrovich as his assistant, and you bring in Ryan Nelson as a defensive analyst. But we all know that pass rush is his specialty. You got to look at how those 3 tie in with these guys. There's something to be seen there, which is they're trying to get upfield, get disruption, be twitchy type dudes up front. And while we might go ahead and keep that first-round pick, I have no idea. The big-body defensive tackle type dudes are deep in this draft. Maybe we go ahead and select one of those guys in the first or second round if we want that big, for lack of better terms, big sloppy dude, 340 guy on the inside. But you have to – I like some of the changes we've made now with these signings. I love effort guys. I love guys that play with attitudes. All 3 of these cats, they are that type of player.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to bring Ed along with him. It's going to bring Rousseau along with him. That type of attitude's infectious, and they've gotten better up front just because of the way these guys play and the style of play that they bring to the field, in my opinion.
Well, you like attitude guys who play with an edge because that's who you were, right? I mean, that's what you brought to the game, right? So, I agree with everything that you just said. I don't know that I have a point to add as far as that goes. It's just going to come down to what the fit is and how it fits. I would expect the only thing that I would add when it comes to the draft, and I haven't started any draft prep yet, and obviously I will be mock free in 25, just like I've been mock free every other year of my life. But it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Daquan Jones is not getting any younger. They're going to have to find a way to either draft Daquan Jones's replacement or do what they've done in the past, like they did with Star Lotulelele, and replace Daquan like they replaced Star with Daquan. So they're going to have to replace Daquan at some point. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. They've got the capital to move up if they find a guy that they like. I would say this is not a scouting team and a front office that goes BPA. They find a guy, they fall in love with a guy or 2, and then they draft the guy they really like, or they go get the guy they really like. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that rolls out. But yes, as far as Ogunjobi, what he could potentially bring, there's a lot of conversation about his energy, a lot of conversation about his motor, all stuff you want to hear, right? So yes, and then obviously we're going to see a lot more of Dwayne Carter in this defensive rotation. Jordan Phillips, you would suspect, is gone. With Joey Bosa is probably going to get his number, which even means more so that he's going to be gone. So yeah, I like what they've done. I like the changes that they've made. At the end of the day, we need to see it, right? We need to see it on the question is going to be, if Von Miller, who has the pass rush academy or whatever they call it, tight end academy, or whatever the pass rush summit is that he does, and AJ Epinesa has been there many times, and Rousseau has been there many times. If Von Miller can't get into Rousseau and AJ Epinesa, you wonder what Joey's going to bring outside of Joey just goes out there and does Joey things, right?
My biggest deal is this, and this is what I want to focus on before we move to some of these other guys we've signed and are bringing in this year. And I want to talk about Rousseau real quick. We have to get it out of our heads when we talk about Greg Rousseau that all we talk about is rushing the passer.
True.
Greg Rousseau is a complete player. He's not a pass rush specialist. He's not a run specialist. He does both. He probably plays the run better than the pass, but he is a complete defensive end. You got to understand now, he had the most sacks on the team this year. That's not saying a lot. Okay, let's not get crazy. But the point being is this. Can we please get away from anytime we talk about Rousseau, we talk about rushing the passer.
Right.
That's a part of his game, but he got the money he got, which was probably what 18th or 19th in average as far as that. I mean, another very, very team friendly, cap friendly contract. We signed him because of the complete player that he is, not because of the way he rushes the passer.
Right.
So I kind of want to get away from that a little bit.
That's fine. I mean, it'll be mid-season and we'll all be talking about it.
Well, you will be, and I'll be saying this, and I'll be saying the same thing. Please, can we look at the complete?
Fina talks about it way more than I do.
Well, that's because John's a left tackle, and he was enamored with pass rush stuff. So anyway,
I like Greg Rousseau. I don't say a whole lot of negative comments about him. But John, John clearly wants to see more out of Greg Rousseau. So
well, we go ahead and we move on to, and I do too. I'm just saying that his career is not hinged upon how many sacks he gets.
Correct.
Let's move on to another area of need that was taken care of rather quickly. Josh Palmer, the wide receiver from the Chargers, 3 years, $36 million, 6'2", 210-pound, 25-year-old guy, also a Canadian, played at Tennessee. He is really, really high. When you look at his route running and where he's effective, he's really, really effective in that 10 to 20-yard range. He does do some things over 20 yards. He's not going to leave anybody, but he's not slow by any means, but he's not a combine burner, so to speak.
Right.
But this is a guy that's an incredible route runner, gets separation through unbelievable technique running routes. You look at his career in Los Angeles or San Diego, and he was kind of buried behind some guys, Williams and others, and he did have some flashes. His production, I believe, would have gone up if any of those dudes weren't there. I like this signing as well. I think that the concept of route runners is overlooked. All we care about anymore is speed, because that's all we show on the NFL Network when the combine's going on. Speed, speed is great, but there's other things that make you a great receiver. I also like this Palmer signing. Kind of your thoughts on it?
So I'm going to say something first that you're not going to be able to resist staying away from, which is I would have probably preferred they kept Matt Collins, both for special teams purposes and then obviously for what he brought to this offense. Similar thing, right? An energy, a little bit of a swag, capable. This feels very, Trent Sherfield to me, a guy that, this kid is really good and has all the measurables and all the metrics, and he's been buried on depth charts, but he's got the capability and everything that you want to see from him. I've seen it all over Twitter and all over social media about how he was buried behind Williams and Keenan Allen, but he wasn't last year at all. He was buried behind Ladd McConkey, who's a guy that the Bills could have drafted. Who had a pretty amazing year for a very small, undersized outside wide receiver. So 2023, he had 38 receptions for 581 yards. Last year, he had 39 receptions for 584 yards. The year 2022, I think one of those dudes was hurt. I think Williams, he had 72 receptions for 769, which is a very good year. If we get that out of him, 72 for 769, along with Khalil Shakir, and you hope a growth season in Keon Coleman, I think we're doing all right. And Dalton Kincaid. I don't mind the signing. I don't not like it. It's just like with everybody else. These aren't flash names. These aren't, and you've got to give the front office credit as much as they missed on some dudes, Trent Sherfield, and some of those other guys, and KJ Hamler, blah, blah, blah. Some of those dudes that were out there. They did a good job with Matt Collins last year. They found some guys last year that contributed, and you hope that maybe they're seeing what they want to see, right? And this is a dude that they're going to expect to get some productivity from, and hopefully he gives it to them. And quarterback to quarterback, as much as I don't mind Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's not Josh Allen. We're going to expect to see Justin Herbert become a better quarterback, specifically the longer he's with Harbaugh. But Josh Allen, it's probably going to make him a better wide receiver as long as he fits inside of what Josh wants to do, right? So we'll see. I'm excited about it. It's a good signing in my opinion. But I don't subscribe to the whole he was buried behind other dudes last year, because he wasn't. So
actually, if you look at it, he was. But the other thing is this:
Ladd McConkey was the.
I'm going to make a couple of points too.
He was buried behind.
I'm going to make a couple of points. And Ladd McConkey was a first round pick, wasn't he, or was he a top of the second? Top of second.
Two, yeah.
Okay, maybe we should have drafted him.
Yes.
A couple of points. Mac's on his like 5th or 6th team now, right?
Maybe more, but yes.
Okay, and Josh is on his 2nd.
Yes.
So I'll leave you at that. The other thing is this: I love Matt Collins.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's great, and I love the fact that you love Matt Collins after you did not love Matt.
I
Collins
did not love Matt Collins. I didn't love Josh Allen throwing the football to Matt, forcing the ball to Matt Collins.
If Mac
is out there somewhere, is what I didn't like.
If Matt Collins wore shoes, drove an expensive car, didn't wear a Flintstones outfit, didn't wear beach gear in the winter, and did not wear an animal head to Kansas City for the playoffs, would anybody care? Would anybody care? No, they would not care.
No,
he's a personality. He did it. He went from heel to face, which, by the way, the people that don't understand that, heel to face is a professional wrestling term. A heel's a bad guy, a face is a good guy. He went from heel to face turn was masterful. It was almost as good as DeChambeau's heel to face turn in professional golf. I love Matt Collins. I think he's a great locker room guy and everything else. But the point being, Matt Collins was not going to take you to a Super Bowl. I don't know if Josh Palmer is.
Right.
But when I look at Josh Palmer and that dreaded word that starts with the P, potential, I'll ride with him right now before I ride with Matt Collins. So while he was great, he was a wonderful addition to this team. He did everything he was supposed to do. To me, it was a no-brainer, especially for what New England paid to bring him up there. And then he's back with Josh McDaniel again. Yeah. And they can wear Muppets gear together.
The greatest benefit, the greatest benefit to Matt Collins was Amari Cooper. Matt Collins became a different player in this offense when Amari Cooper was signed. Amari taking all the attention turned Matt Collins into a player that was open more than he wasn't. But yeah.
And as Connor says, Matt Collins was a fun player, but at the end of the day, he was a 5th wide receiver.
Yeah, and you were correct. 5 teams, he's on to his 6th. New England is now his 6th team.
And then we're talking a little bit about teams earlier with Matt Collins. I forgot to talk about it with Hoyt. Hoyt's an incredible special teams player, and maybe if they don't decide to bring Quentin Morris back, he's the big body replacement of the guy that's on all the teams. So I forgot to mention that earlier. And then another signing that came down today, which is another one that's interesting, Joe, that can be talked about. And another topic where it's kind of equivalent to buried under the depth chart is Derek Forrest from Washington. He signed a 1-year, $1.337 million contract, 5'11", 200-pound safety from Cincinnati. And he lost his job due to a defensive philosophy change. And many people out there, not Bills related, have put on the socials, they're extremely excited about his fit in Buffalo because of the amount of zone we play, and he's kind of that zone type safety. Keep your head up on this guy. I think this could be potentially one of those steel type signings in free agency. I kind of like this one. Your thoughts?
I mean, it strikes me as, the Bills want to get bigger at safety, right? Taylor Rapp's a little undersized. Cole Bishop is a bigger safety, 6'2". I can't remember what his weight is. Insurance against possibly Cole Bishop or when you're talking about Taylor Rapp. But I don't not like it. I don't mind it. I don't know much about him other than some highlights that I have seen. Most of the highlights were from one game, and it's just like, great, he had one good game, but he owned that game. Those highlights came from he was a menace in that football game. But this is also a defensive backfield, which comes back to why I don't feel like the Buffalo Bills. We talked about this weekend while we were golfing. I don't feel like the Bills are going to re-sign Christian Benford. I feel like they're probably going to go get a guy and then they're going to draft a guy. This is this is a defense that has made Levi Wallace look good, that has made Dane Jackson look good, that has made some of these corners that aren't first-round draft picks, Kaiir Elam, look good. Meanwhile, a 6th-round draft pick that you love everything Christian Benford brings to the game, but he's a 6th-round draft pick for a reason. He's not super athletic. He just plays his assignments and understands the defense well. And this is a McDermott thing. His defensive backfields have always been DB friendly. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are going to go down in Bill's history as the best safety tandem this team has ever seen. They're going to end up on the Wall of Fame probably together. Who knows? Maybe at the same time they would go in together. That'd be kind of cool if you think about it. But at the end of the day, Jordan Poyer was not a starter in Cleveland, and Micah Hyde was a guy that the Packers were okay with letting go. And they come to Buffalo, and they're basically legends here as far as that goes. So we'll see. I like it. We need more safety help. I think they're going to draft a safety. But yeah, I like it.
One thing, hopefully next week when we're sitting here talking on Wednesday night, remember, again, new day, same time, same show. Will be Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. Big O show here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. Obviously, folks, there's been rumors out there about Asante Samuel Jr. We need a cornerback.
Yes.
And I would imagine that's the next domino that's going to fall. Is that where the trade's going to take place?
That might be number one. That might be their first pick. They might go corner first pick with a guy that is going to start.
Again, I would love to have a vet in that spot, but if we do go corner, we go corner.
Tre'Davious White, 27th overall, and started from the day that he got here.
You're looking at a team that needs a starting corner and alpha at the corner position. Is this where the trade's made with picks, those types of things? I'd be curious to see. I'll look at it later, just how much money we have left on the cap. Are people going to get moved? We just signed 3 defensive linemen. Is Epinesa the odd man out? You talked about Daquan Jones. Is he the odd man out? I think there's still a lot more movement as this week goes on in Buffalo, and you'll see some more pieces, including, hell, we still need a punter as well. So there's a lot to be there's a lot of work still to be done, and we appreciate you joining us here on Wednesday night here on the Buffalo on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, powered by Believe. Thanks for listening. Again, as always, if you missed the video, you can listen to us on the podcast on any of the major podcasting platforms, and that'll be up tomorrow morning. You can go ahead and listen to the show there, and we'll be back next Wednesday with talking more free agency. 2025 season started today, 4 p.m. Eastern. Free agency begun, and the 2025 season is here, folks, and we're here to talk about it on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network. For Joe Miller, I am the Big O, Jerry Ostrowski, and we will be back more next week. As always, Joe.
Go Bills.
Much love. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, hit the like, rate it. Go Bills.
I'm still the same day.